Welcome to the 10-Minute Life Coaching Program. My name is Jay Cleveland Payne. I train people for improved personal and professional development, offering my assistance for those ready to develop their goals into tangible, focused, and achievable plans of action. And this podcast is one tool I use to complete my mission. How it works: in 10 minutes time, when the 10-minute mark hits on this podcast, you'll have a life lesson that you can take away with you at this point right here and apply it to something going on in your life immediately. And if this lesson in this episode sounds familiar, like something you're already trying to do that just doesn't know how to work itself out, maybe I can help. Go to our website, 10minutelifecoach.com, and see if there's a way that we can connect so that we can help work on this together. This podcast is powered by the $10 Life Coaching Program. More on that project in just a moment, but first, today's lesson. Calvin is a recent accountability coaching client I've taken on, and Calvin, of course, is not his real name. We've changed his name and slightly changed the situation so that we can tell this story, and this story has his full permission to tell, about how accountability is so important to your life and how who you're really disappointing when you don't stay accountable to your partners is yourself. That's why we do coaching for accountability, but we'll talk about that later. Let's talk about Calvin and his situation. Calvin came to me after he came to a very serious realization that he was not keeping up with commitments. What really triggered this idea that he had something going wrong with his life was that he was kicked out of a very prestigious mentoring program that he was able to finally get into after years of working into the system. And then after about 6 months of not showing up on time and not being available when he was supposed to be, he was unceremoniously asked to leave the organization, or technically put on suspension for about 6 more months to see if he can stay in the situation. Now, what's the problem? Calvin was supposed to be at a mentoring program every Thursday at 6 o'clock, but Calvin has an issue getting off work at time every single Thursday at 6 o'clock and most days of the week. So Calvin was never on time for pretty much anything. He missed on dates with his girlfriend. He missed out hanging out with his friends. He missed out on other various engagements and networking issues. And, of course, this mentoring program that meant a lot to him and we believe means a lot to the kids in the program. Now, the adults who run the program run it at a very, very strict level, very high level of professionalism, which is why Calvin was asked to step down after not showing up as opposed to just letting him go, letting him slide. But because of that, he needed to find some way to get accountable, and he reached out to me. Now, what does he get for the coaching? He gets somebody to talk to about whatever situation is going on. He gets somebody to go back and forth on what actually is in his life that's not being done and taken care of time. And he gets someone to essentially ask him the questions that need to be asked. And if something goes wrong, if something goes haywire, something goes sideways, here's what he really learned. It's not about disappointing other people. Accountability is about disappointing yourself. If you make a plan and you don't keep up to that plan, you can disappoint the other person. That's obvious. The person who's expecting something about that dinner or that meeting or just that time to hang out and chill is going to lose out on getting whatever it was they were hoping to get. But the real loss in accountability comes from not being able to say that you are consistent, say that people can actually trust you to do things, and it's really a loss in your own headspace of knowing you can't take care of what you need to take care of. So while the kids in the program will probably get over it or blow it off at some point, assuming that it's not too bad, the consistency is what makes it a real problem. The habit of saying you're going to show up and not showing up shows that you can't live up to your commitments, and in your head will prove to you that you just can't keep things going. The kids eventually will get over it. Obviously, the parents, the adults in the program found other mentors to take care of them. And of course, I put Calvin on suspension, which I think I've said 4 times now, so he can take some time to reevaluate his actual life and figure out what he needs to do if he wants to stick around with the program. And that's what he's doing. Calvin had to look at the priorities that he was actually living up to versus the priorities that he said he wanted to live up to. Was he spending enough time with his family and friends, and specifically the girlfriend who he thought he was going to move on towards to another level? That right now, of course, is also in question as she is questioning his commitment to her. Does he want to be a bigger pillar of the community, do more things for the people, and do more things as in volunteering and being around, or does he want to work all the time? Is the money he's making doing the extra work and putting in the extra hours and, of course, putting his health and time on the line worth it? In some cases, it could be, because it seems to be a good amount of money, a very good salary and wage and bonuses that's coming in from the extra work. But that means a lot of waiting for last minute things to happen and rushing to get them done before deadlines happen, which are also last minute and rushed. And so the openness of having a free and empty calendar is something he can't necessarily have. He could be tighter on his schedule on the first place, but when things are falling from the sky that must be done because big money's in the line and big clients are on the line, it's hard to be able to say, I'm going to put this time aside for someone and give it to them ahead of time. It's one thing to all of a sudden have an empty block in your schedule and be able to give someone some special time alone to do whatever it is that they want to do. It's something totally different to plan that thing ahead and hype it up and work towards it and put lots of effort into what's going to happen so that you can both enjoy it and be living up to it and not just hoping that you have free time whenever your time is available. The accountability that Calvin is getting is going to be great for him and is also great for me because it's a learning experience every time I work with a new client on how to better work on, one, my work, helping him be accountable to what's going on by being his accountability partner, and two, helping me realize that sometimes my priorities are out of whack. And by sometimes, I mean most of the times, my priorities are out of whack. I've put a lot of extra emphasis in this year, in the upgrade year, to put the family first, put those things in priority, put those things ahead of the schedule and ahead of a lot of the work things. So while I'm glad to have Calvin on as a client, because that means income for the company, Calvin's work cannot overtake my other things. Family's coming first. Other duties are coming first. Calvin, in our accountability work, had to be scheduled into a perfect schedule for the both of us. And his accountability is essential on him hitting that schedule. That's something he didn't quite understand, or at least didn't have enough sense to not blow off with the accountability to the mentoring program. So he assumed he was showing up, he was there, the kids loved him, and that was the most important thing. Not the fact that he was constantly late to programs and sometimes missed the big trips altogether because of something coming up in his business life. Because the business life is important, but also the one-on-one time with the kids and the other folks that he disappointed in dates and family ventures, whatever, was important as well. The accountability partner that you're actually disappointing the most, if you're doing it right, is yourself. Because you are a part of the partnership. Your accountability partner essentially asks you what it is you want to be accountable for and then calls you on it when you're not doing it, or gives you support and gives you ups when you're actually doing it. That's what they're supposed to be doing, building you up and hopefully not having to do much work in tearing you down, because you can do all the work necessary to tear yourself down, whether you're doing up or down in your accountability. The greatest source of stress in trying to be accountable comes from inside. At least if you're doing it right. If you know you're not living up to your accountability standards, it should be a pain in your brain. It should be a serious thing that tugs at your soul. It should really, really hurt when you miss those deadlines that you're supposed to be accountable for. There's usually some sort of penalty if you miss a deadline at work. You usually get that cold shoulder if you miss a time for a date. And if you're not doing it the right way, you let it go. You just assume that's life and they'll get over it. If you're truly up to your accountability goals and staying accountable to whomever or whatever, it doesn't matter if it's business or pleasure, you just got to keep on schedule. You've got to make that a priority. You've got to keep your accountability set. Getting an accountability partner will help you out in the long run, but of course, you're ultimately and always accountable to that message coming from the back of your mind, keeping you on or off track. So how you liking the new format? How you liking the audible tone at the end of the lesson? How do you like the the pre-taped audio with music at the beginning of the message? That way we go straight into the message whenever I record, and they are always now, to be totally honest with you, less than 9 minutes or 9 minutes right at the point. We hadn't had anything go long yet in the new format of taping, but I'm sure we'll get some that'll roll over. But we're keeping it under the 10-minute rule, as always stated, and we always had about a minute's worth of the opening, so that's essentially consistent. But it's different. I'm still getting used to the tone thing, making that work out and knowing I'm going to stop and then restart after, I think it's like 3-4 seconds, whatever it is. And so it's something that I am getting used to, and I'm sure you're getting used to as well. If it doesn't work for you, you can send me an email and tell me about it. All responses can go to 10minutelifecoach@gmail.com, the now dedicated email address to the 10-Minute Life Coach, as we work on the year of the upgrade, making things work out for the best for all of us. Some things I've learned just to kind of tone it down a little bit, not be so on-go, so gung-ho, I should say, in moving forward. A simple email address that dedicated to this show works, and that's what it is, and there it is. Any questions, any comments, anything that you have about that, you can send to 10minutelifecoach@gmail.com. Any questions or concerns that you don't know goes there, or you think it's a little larger than that, you can always send it to info@jclevelandpayne.net, the email address for the business, the main site business. And, of course, questions about how to get in contact with me at the website, 10minutelifecoach.com. You can find out about accountability coaching or other coaching programs, including one-on-one and business development strategizing with me via 10minutelifecoach.com. Now, the $10 Life Coach is alive. I'm not sure it's kicking very well, but it is alive. We are testing it, and we need you inside the test. And here's the big thing of that. If you get into the test now, you're going to save, not that $10 is that much money, but we'll save a couple coins on the whole deal. So we need some people to help us beta test it and be founding members of the community. So info on that, just go to another email address, $10lifecoach@gmail.com. And that's pretty simple. The best thing about doing this new simplified format is that it really does simplify the format. The talking points at the end have been nice and clear and concise. The whole middle part, which is the lesson, all good. And since I don't have to tape the actual opening every time, I can just focus on the new part, the meat, that stuff that's there. So with that said, thank you for being a part of the podcast. We always thank you for that. Thank you for being a part of the community at large, even if you're not a constant and vocal part. We love having you here. Every single person gives me life to make this thing happen. Subscribe to the podcast at various pod places. They're all over the place. We're also actually on Instagram right now, and we are putting clips of the messages on Instagram, and the link in the Instagram goes to a link tree where you can find us anywhere. But just go to the website and click on any episode, and you can see how you can subscribe to any single podcatcher that's out there. And if your podcatcher is not there, let me know. We'll put it on there. Tell a friend, tell a few people that are looking towards the journey, and make sure you're here next week for another edition, for another great life lesson in 10 minutes, 9 minutes actually, inside the 10-Minute Life Coach program.